Mayor Lumpy. Present. Mayor Pro Tem Barron. Present. Councilmember McClellan.
Present.
Councilmember Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Clearfield.
Here.
Councilmember Swenson.
Present.
Mayor LaFleur.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
This is the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to move on to announcements. And I just want to remind everybody that the city of Blanco is still on stage 2 water restrictions. That has not changed. The Hill Country Holistic Health is having a ribbon cutting and open house on Friday, March 30th from 3 to 5. The next reading between the lines event is tomorrow, March 8th from 5:30 to 7. The Blanco State Park will be hosting a nature journaling program from 2 to 3:30 on March 14th. Attendees will need to pay for the day pass, but other than that, all the supplies will be provided. The first Blanco Market Day of the year will be on March 18th from 9 to 4. The Texas Healy Roundup 42 will be in Blanco from March 24th to the 26th. And on the morning of the 25th, you can come out to the square to see these beautiful Heelys. And last but not least, the Senior Services Expo will be held on March 31st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the CRC in Johnson City. We're going to move on to public comment. My comment?
Sorry. Desiree, Mayor Lumpy.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
That it?
Yes, you got it.
Mayor Lumpy Council, thank you. My name is Mike Arnold. There's a couple of very big issues that are sort of looming out there from y'all. Specifically the 281 overlay and also the 7 Oaks development that will dramatically change the face of Blanco. And I would encourage you not to take action on those until after the election. The people of Blanco are engaged, paying attention. 70 people showed up at PNC last night. You have 3 council members up for election. One's leaving actually out of state, so we'll have to live with the ramifications of this. It wouldn't be right to rush these before the election. Hey, if the people want all that, it'll be obvious. If they don't, it'll be obvious. There's a reason the P&Z and Historical Commission have been tabling these things. This is it. They don't think it's right. I don't think it's right. A lot of people don't think it's right. They want to take action on that. There's a lot of changes coming up soon. So just wanted to encourage you on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Smith.
Okay, on behalf of Wendy Smith, I received a message that I'm just going to continue from her. She is opposed to the reduction in size of the garden homes in Los Altos from 1,440 to 1,200 square feet. Agreement on the specs is a binding agreement and shouldn't be changed. If this is approved, it will set a precedent for other builders to change agreements that have already been made. The building businesses fluctuate often, and builders should have accounted for this in their original plans. If the cost of products went down, I'm certain builders wouldn't pass the savings on their clients. Thank you, Minister.
Gil McClellan.
Pretty sure y'all are probably getting tired of seeing my face. But I do want to clarify about the historical commission. We didn't table it because of the election. We only tabled it because we don't understand it. So I was told last night that I am very opinionated, but not.
That's not the word I use, Gail.
If being passionate about Blanco and what it stands for makes me opinionated, then yes, I'm very opinionated. So, the people of Blanco helped create the UDC several years ago. The UDC gets trashed more often than it gets respect. With variances, then those variances get trashed with more variances. And we don't know what we can depend on and what we can't depend on. We need some kind of stability so we know what's going on. At least I think that people need to know what's going on. And I also want to tell you that moving this to 4:30 has kept a lot of people from coming because they're not free to come this early in the day. But one of those trashes is Los Altos. Our ordinances were sacrificed during COVID for that development, and now they want to trash those variances for new ones. And I'm only going to speak for myself, but I don't think that's right. I think an agreement is an agreement, and we should be able to depend on that agreement unless it's going to harm somebody very, very badly. It's all very confusing, and there are a lot of problems with that development, but we've agreed to it, so we do owe it to them. Streetscape also trashes our UDC. I think our UDC will be totally done away with, and because it's from the people, I was around when it was developed, and it was massive, and the people said what they wanted Blanco to look like in years to come. I know a lot of new people come in and they don't want Blanco to look like that, but there are other ways to change the UDC than just trashing it. So I think that's all I need to say. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Julie Alexander.
You want me to speak now? Or do I
You just-
I'd also like to say that things weren't tabled because we don't want y'all to just continue our leadership. And then, Warren, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this didn't have a restriction on it at Los Altos, a 1,200 square foot house would be allowed, correct?
That's correct.
So, just with that being said, it just makes more sense anyway, because this is a 0 lot line, it's a smaller footprint lot. A 1,200 square foot house would fit nicely on these lots. We don't get this. Okay. Hopefully you had time to go over it. I just wanted to bullet point a couple of things. The biggest thing was, one of the reasons we wanted to reduce the square footage was because of the cost, not just to the builder, but also to the consumer. When this project was passed, the interest rates were 3%. Now they're in the range of 7%. I opened up my email Monday. It is bombarded with the Fed saying that they're supposed to raise the interest rate another 2 times this year. So if you look at the differences in how much a rate costs a consumer for the same product, it's staggering. It's almost $1,000 just in their mortgage payment. So I think it's pretty clear. As well as the lifestyle trends. I know that, people have gotten up and said, how's a family going to live in a 1,200 square foot house? Well, this is just the minimum that we're asking for it to be an alternative floor plan for somebody who might want to build in there. I know the builder has come up with, I think, the home he wants to build just as a sample house model to show what the project would look like as 1660. The model 1440. And then, statistics show that people are looking for smaller homes just for economics, for the carbon footprint. Gen Xers are in smaller homes. They don't want the big, huge home with all the maintenance. And then 2 older retired couples, empty nesters, want to walk-in view. So I just think it'd be a really good option for the community. And then really, I think that basically covers most of it. Do y'all have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to old business. Item 1, consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of proposed amendment to planned development district number 2020-013, Los Altos.
Mayor, council, residents, wind up, I don't want to say much more than what's been said about this, but the fact that you're looking at is a PD that's already approved. The only request is to take the minimum size from 1440 to 1200. I don't know why they put that in the time. If I was a developer, I would have done that, but they did. That's changed a little bit of the project, but it actually required us impervious space. It may even make lots a little bigger. I'm not here to talk about that, other than if you think that this does not change the project very much, then the answer is pretty simple. So I do want to just discuss a couple things. You have your all you're doing here is just amending that one portion, not talk about the rest of the project or whether you like it or not. So from the standpoint of what does this do, both section 1 already plans are being approved, section 2 is almost being approved. That has nothing to do with the house plans, that's just the infrastructure. But with standard and staff is that they've done the things that we've asked to do. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that we pass this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, I had the pleasure of serving on council when this was agreed to. And I can tell you it was a controversial issue at that point in time. I feel like we came to a reasonable solution. And I make a motion that we do not approve the proposed amendment to plan development number 20200-013.
Councilmember Smith has moved to not approve the amendment to the PDD number 2020-013. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Discussion?
I have I'm a little confused, I guess, about the difficulty or the concern about amending it because it's an option. It's not something that's going to require or make all the houses smaller. And given that we are always struggling to find places for people to live in our community who can afford to buy them, if we can lower somebody's mortgage payment by $600 or $700 or $800 a month, that's a big difference. And the arguments that I've heard, I have a hard time with. It's that 1,200 isn't enough space to raise a family. Trust me, my sister and I shared a bedroom a lot less than 1,200 square feet for a lot of years. So you can bring a young family there. I also have a number of friends the age in our community as well, where couples who have lived out on land and women have lost their husbands and can't live out on land anymore. And they want to move into town and have someplace small and new and not have a lot of maintenance and something where they could afford to live comfortably without a well and a septic and trees to trim after the ice storm, et cetera. So if we were making real significant changes, I could understand it, but I'm puzzled why we would deny our citizens an option for something smaller that would allow them something that might be then affordable for them to buy. And one of the complaints was that the zero lot lines, it was gonna look really crowded. Well, if somebody chose a smaller house, the lot would look bigger, there'd be more green space around it. So I'm I have to say, I'm personally in favor of allowing it just because, things change. They don't always stay the same. And the whole idea of the zero lot line, because I remember I wasn't on council, but I remember the controversy following P and Z and the whole idea of developing that tightly with zero lot line was the controversial part. But if we're not adding, the developer's not adding any more structures, not putting any more homes, not changing the platting or the layout, but just allowing as a menu option, somebody to say, I can't afford a 1,440 square foot house. Could you build me a 1,200 square foot house? Because I could buy that. I hate to take that off the table if the builder's willing to do it. A lot of builders won't build things that small because there's not enough profit in them to build that small. So trying to find builders who are willing to build nice homes that are small is not always easy to find. So that's my comment. Those are my comments.
Okay, and I've got a comment back, is that, the goal is to reduce the cost. And when you reduce the cost, you affect the value of your adjoining properties. And I think we've got an obligation to the citizens that were there when we approved this, if the original square footage to maintain that.
Well, and again, I think that what you find is that the property values are normally done by per square foot. What is the property selling for per square foot? And so that house is going to cost less, but the house next to it is bigger, it's going to cost more. So if the subdivision, if the development is nicely done and the construction is solid and it's done with good finish outs and good quality product, and I don't know, maybe one person will want a 1,200 square foot house, maybe two people will, maybe nobody will. But again, they're not going to be spec homes. He's not going to go in and build them and then say, here's all you get. It's just, I can offer you all these things. He'd probably rather build bigger ones. I guess if you get people to buy bigger ones, he'd rather get the bigger ones. But if somebody wanted a smaller one to be able to buy it, I don't think the size is what's going to affect the value of the property. It'll be the condition of the property, the condition of the community, the neighborhood around it, the way it's built. At least being married to a broker for 40 years, that's all I ever hear is looking at the cost per square foot for homes based on the comps and the things in the area, and that's what'll set the price.
Can I say something about Mike's comment?
We're in a discussion right now, so, not at this time.
I'll add a little bit to this, and respectfully, Mayor Pro Tem, I don't disagree with you on any of your comments. My issue is there is no measurable, verifiable benefit to the citizen or the community by making this amendment. And so for me, there's no compelling reason to do so, and I would like to respect previous council and PNC. And that's what I'm about.
So, but P and Z they said we should accept.
This time, I'm speaking of the
Okay.
previous one that worked on
Oh,
this
I see.
plan. And I will say for some context, because I was at that planning and zoning meeting, that was a very difficult decision for them, and I really applaud them. And it was one vote, and it was a voter that struggled.
At the time this was being discussed, I remember the council was criticized by PMZ because they put a lot of work into background and studying and they went over this, and if things would come to us, simple things like I remember when Tractor Supply went in, the UDC said the sign had to be such and such. P&Z had approved that. And then Tractor Supply made an appeal to the council. We said, yeah, it wouldn't hurt anything to raise that sign up. And P&Z is kind of like, we worked hard on this. Why do you overrule us all the time? And so we struggled with that. And we made a lot of variances in order for this community to go in with the idea that we needed low-income housing. And we came to an agreement with the developers to do this as is presently proposed. And we supported P&Z at the time and went ahead and did this. I hate to see us change at this stage of the game and say, okay, we're going to tweak this after the hardship of what we did this passed initially, and then change it. There aren't very many on the council here that remember another issue having to do with our wastewater plant. Agreements were made, and then it was changed, and then we tweaked this, and I don't know, I think we ought to stick by the commitments that we have made. And I don't want to see this community in the heart of our city become a trailer park. We could put wheels under these things, we'll keep making them smaller and affordable, and we'll have ourselves a trailer park. I'm very in favor of keeping the present commitment that this council has made, along with the former P&Z that passed it.
Well, in my opinion, we don't have a minimum house size elsewhere in the UGC, so I don't think it really belonged in the PDD to begin with. I know we're bringing up the point of setting a precedent if we're gonna keep changing the contracts all the time, but any changes would still have to come through council. And the last 3 years, we've had huge changes in our economy, so I don't think it's that reasonable to respond to the economic conditions for us to change this. We need affordable housing, we need cheaper housing here. We don't have a lot of options at a lower price point. And that was one of the reasons to have this fee, was to have a cheaper price point. So them asking to do that, I think, keeps in the spirit of the PDD originally. I don't think 1,200 square feet is too small a house. I live in a 1,200 square foot house. I went last weekend. I visited a friend who's in a new construction, 1,200 square foot. She's a mother with her daughter. Sometimes her partner's there. She's raising a family in that house. We had 7 adults and 1 child there, and there was plenty of space. I think we need to. I'm in favor of allowing the 1,200 square feet. I did have one question from the developer. If this is denied, will you build the 1440 or will you not do the project?
We will respectfully move forward with whatever the council chooses, whatever your pleasure is. It's already in place as it is. We've developed 6 floor plans as of yet, and the first one was at 1440. In your package, because one of the same comment came up today as it did last go around, is we probably put wheels on the Sims. We built a really nice product. I got to miss, I think just a couple minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
A little history and in your package, we put together one of our models that's 1,200 square feet and one that's 1,300 square feet changed to show you how they lay out. By the way, I live in a 1,200 square foot home on Elm Street. I grew up in a home less than that, shared a bedroom with 3 brothers, good grief. And there's a greater need in this country than ever before for housing. The American dream has always been said to be a homeowner. And people seem to feel that's a further dream to attain or to achieve than ever before. And there's some truth to that. These are not low-income houses as much as we would like to call them. In today's economy, in today's world, to achieve a low-income house, we have to provide something that you could put on wheels. These are homes of very nice flavor, a little bit more modern than what Blanco currently housed. It seems as you drive our neighborhoods, most of the houses seem to be in that area, 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. As you can see on the model there, the one that's scroll, I think scroll 53, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. There's another one of 1,300 change also. And it allows us to develop floor plans that are 1-story because we have the smaller lots to be able to achieve the 50% impervious covering. The larger we go, the more we'll have to put them on top of each other, which we have some that are really beautiful designs. But if we could get I got my home building career, not my home remodeling, I didn't do that forever, but I built my first home in inner San Antonio redevelopment. In conjunction with my company, other builders, the Home Builder Association, the City of San Antonio, the San Antonio Housing Development System, as well as some others, we took an old collapse, if you're familiar with San Antonio, the east side of San Antonio, we took an old development that had been there for half a century and totally redeveloped it. My very first home buyer was a grandmother. And she took care of her 7 grandkids because her children dumped their kids on her. She would never have been able to buy a home had we not had this project. Now, this has been a few decades ago, but it was just around 1,000 square feet. I think a hair under 1,000 square feet. And that day was $55,000. Now, that sounds crazy today. And the day that we delivered her the key on her front porch, all of her little grandkids came around and hugged us and said, Mr. Montalon, Mr. Rick, thank you so much. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath that they were going to share. They had home ownership. They had the pride that you couldn't imagine the joy. So why wouldn't we as a community, and I'm part of this community now, got out of Dodge, got to the big city. If we can have the opportunity, there's 21 homes going to be built over there. If we could add, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 more families could have that home ownership, because maybe they couldn't qualify for 400, 450. Maybe they can qualify for 300, 350, 360, or whatever it may be. That's a beautiful thing. Home ownership. If you look at the National Association of Home Builders and their research on home ownership, it leads to higher productivity for children in school. It leads to the higher home, the nuclear family. So many benefits. You said it best. I'm in the business to build big homes. I build big homes. So to build a 1,200 square foot home is really not that much of a financial gain, but it is kind of a give back, if you will. Man, if we as a community pull together and add a few more people to add homes. Right now, the city of Blanco is on a 3-year decline in population. That's based on an international study. There's no place, businesses aren't going to come here because there's no place to house their employees. There's a few houses on market here locally. If we start putting some houses, there'll be time for the 1,400, 1,500, there'll be time and a place for the bigger homes also. But if we come together and put a few more folks in a really nice development, it's going to be a very quick taste, I assure you. But anyway, that's why we put those in there. There's also a site plan in your package there, because that question came up last time also, is how are you going to fit these on these little bitty lots? So the site plan that you have there shows the current model that we're getting ready to build, and that's a 1,400 square foot. And we have way over the 50% impervious cover achieved on this. Very nice flavor. It's got a good sized backyard. It has a good sized side yard. And of course, a small front yard because these are garden homes, so I have small front yards. And so a 1,200 square foot home, that much easier to put down a single story and achieve all the things every other requirement requires for the neighborhood. Maybe I said too much. You can ask questions.
Thank you.
We had a motion in a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes 3-2. You're going to move on to new business. Item 1, consideration and discussion only, no action regarding 281 overlay corridor plan, rezoning methods, and next step.
So I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the process. What we had was a project that started in late 21. We designed it to basically protect, the 281 corridor. Had a steering committee or a group that started, had several meetings, had a discussion with the community, and it's gone to planning commission, P and Z a couple of times. P and Z asked for a special presentation that was above and beyond the normal scope. Done that. We did not notice it tonight for the recorded vote, so it's not even more discussion portion for you as council to look at things and kind of give your opinion and thoughts. It'll go back to P and Z in April and then to you in April. One of the things we were waiting for was to get some more comments from the historic commission. So we'll take all the comments we get from people, incorporate that, and then the P and Z will give you a recommendation. Use council will make a decision. That's really the process in a real small nutshell.
I will just say that to date, and I've not done all my homework on it yet, but I've had a couple of citizens, previous council members, long-serving P and Z people look at it, and I think where we've got some work to do is that what we want the overlay to do hasn't been written in and integrated appropriately into the UDC to truly reflect what it is that everybody agreed we wanted to do. So I think there's some drafting issues to make sure that when it gets into the UDC, it fits appropriately and makes sense to give us what we all want. No big box stores, no huge setbacks with massive parking lots in the front, things that are gonna be smaller, more welcoming, closer to the streets, something that will make people want to stop and come in and allow small businesses to be able to exist and do small business here. And so those are, but when you look at the outline, all of those things are straight on, and all the things we try to do. When you look at how it was drafted into the UDC, doesn't always translate that way. So I think that's where we've got some more work to figure out, to make sure that everybody worked on it and all the input, what we want to have done will actually be done when it's written down. So that's the feedback that I've been getting, and I've got a couple of marked up copies just from other folks who looked at it and sent those. I haven't gone through them. I'm happy to share those with anybody because I haven't looked at it yet, but they did a lot of work on it. And I think Council Member Swinson has seen some as well. And I don't know, speak for you. I don't know if you concur or not. I haven't talked to you about it.
I've spoken with a few community members. There's been some confusion. Overall, everyone thought the backfill code was needed. They liked the general idea of it and what it's gonna give us. I think it's hard for someone who hasn't read a lot of codes to read code and visualize what the words get to what it looks like. So I think that's where some of the confusion happens. I have a whole thing written up I'd like to share with you guys. So because I've been involved in this project, I was on the steering committee starting last February. I think we definitely need the proposed backfilling code. The point of it is to promote new development to be in the same style as Blanco. And what I mean is the original area from the river north to 14th Street, where we have the lots and the grid street system. We kind of are already seeing the effect of not having something like this, which it is south of the river, near south of Blanco Avenue, where we got Dollar General, we got Tractor Supply, we got Sonic, and not that those aren't great businesses, but it's not our character that we have here. that style of development costs the city more. And because there's less revenue per density. So you have 100 feet of pipe and you have one business versus if you have 100 feet of pipe and you have 4 businesses or 4 residences. It's cheaper for us to provide that infrastructure. We also can't annex land anymore forcefully, so we really need to look at our land use and make sure we can generate revenue to support our infrastructure. I think there's definitely a balance. I'm not saying we should build skyscrapers, but it's a limited resource for the city. The backbone code also, what I really like about it is that it gets the permanent things right, where the streets are and where the businesses, where a building is on the lot. So streets are something that's permanent and it affects all of us, not just a business, right? And it still gives freedom for developers, business owners to look at, to change other aspects, but the streets and where the building are, that's gonna be there forever. We've had a lot of community input from the backbone code from the start. Started in February 2022 is when the first steering committee meeting was. The steering committee had a business owner, so on someone who owns business on 281. We had a business owner, a resident, and a landowner. We had a member from the Historic Preservation Commission, Planning and Zoning, and City Council. All the meetings were open to the public. We had a few community members join various meetings. We did a survey last summer. We had 366 respondents, which really was the most respondents to surveys ever gone. We also had a community meeting at Gym of the Hills last summer, which was very well attended. So it's been a lot of community input through this whole process. So a few things I like the best, I think is really needed in this code. I don't know how much you guys have read it, but
4 times. Still don't understand.
Brandon will be here probably next time to help. The grid system that's going to provide the lots and grid system is our original layout. So think of our original layout here with the grid system. And then think of something like Spring Branch for your typical suburban development where you have the one main road and you have turn off into the one subdivision, and that's the only entrance for those hundreds of homes. So think about that while I read this excerpt that can explain it better than I can. Traditional thoroughfare planning practices in recent decades have often resulted in communities developed around widely spaced, large arterials fed by smaller roadways that often do not connect with each other. This type of roadway system causes vehicle traffic to be dependent on a limited number of major thoroughfares for most trips and limits opportunities for alternate routes. This causes trip lengths to be longer and indirect and is especially problematic for people who might walk, bike, or use public transportation. Well-designed, connected streets make travel more efficient by providing choice not only in modes, but also in routes. A grid-like pattern of primary and local streets benefits not only route choice, but minimizes congested roadway corridors. The hierarchical street system typically funnels traffic onto just a few major arterials, roadways through most trips, and these arterials can become overly congested during peak travel. The grid system mitigates concentrated traffic congestion by dispersing traffic and offering travel options. I also think overall it's going to help calm traffic on 281. So think about when, kind of counterintuitive, but down in the south part, you have the buildings set very far back from the roads. You might think, well, that's great, separate cars and people. What happens is people driving don't perceive any hazards, so they go faster. When you get up here to uptown, the buildings are so close, it's a hazard, so you slow down. I think it's off there. It's long.
Well, I encourage and Councilman to be more involved with this than anybody that she was P and Z representative. So I think as far as being on steering committee and also looking at P and Z through the list and making it more practical. But I think what she says is it does give us some basic things that we're trying to do. We still need some work on it. But what is always unfortunate is the misinformation. So reading the code, if there's something that doesn't make sense, figuring out, working with Warren. I really trust Warren, having been involved in development and codes and platting and all of those things that are always challenging for me to learn about, to be able to look at it and say, here's what this will result in. Like Laura was saying, here's what it's hard to look at it in writing sometimes and figure out how that translates. So I think it's important because we want to get it right. But the way we have things right now, it would allow for the kind of development along these areas that would not really be in keeping with, I think, what most of us would like to see Lambo look like and stay like and feel like. None of the design guidelines were dealt with. It was more like where the buildings would be located on the limits in relationship to the streets. So you're going to have a huge buildings that way back, where you have smaller construction or things that would look differently. So I'm hoping that people will, come more, listen more, read them more, get our questions answered, use the guidance and advice of people who really know what they're doing and not succumb to the Facebook scare tactics. I mean, when people talk about things like turning it into a Disneyland, given that that this doesn't even deal with design guidelines, it's pretty hard to imagine that it's going to have some sort of look. It's a feel, there's no doubt. But the whole goal is to have the feel be consistent to what you feel when you're near the square and have that carried out more through the development so that it feels like and grows like. So that's the goal. And we want to make sure that's what we got.
I'd like to also encourage people when reading the background code, also go and read the UDC that currently applies on 281 and just compare it. See what you think about it.
I'm going to respectfully offer slightly divergent opinion. First, I want to say thank you to all of the citizens and community members who participated in this and tried to shape it, and particularly Councilmember Sunset. One thing, we were both at the last steering committee meeting, and that was a couple weeks ago. And I know at that time you astutely pointed out a few pretty desirable large flaws in the document, some oversights, and the consultant agreed with you. Do you recall? I'm leaning on you and putting you on the spot a little bit, but
Well, are you talking about like the use table?
I
Specifically?
think that was probably one of them. Yeah.
Um,
Well, for me, it kind of told me that no matter how we feel about the document, it's not there yet. It's not complete. Like I said, I have read it several times. It's complicated, and I'll just generally say, first off, I do think we have a lot in common, all of us, because, and I'll go back to not that long ago, a property owner on 281 right next to the Buggy Barn wanted to put in storage units and asked for a special use permit to do so because the zoning didn't support that. And I don't know anybody in the community who we declined his request, and I don't know anybody in the community on any side of anything that disagreed with council's decision on that or planning and zoning's decision on that. So that tells me we have a lot of common ground on what we want to see in 281 corridor. The use table on this, I find particularly frustrating. And I understand it's all about tax dollars and sales tax dollars, but it seems to me that the document pretty implicitly puts the needs and wants of tourists
above citizens. And I think there's a balance to be had there. And, you know, it's hard to be hyperbolic, but to me, the document shapes the city into a high-end boutique shopping mall. And that's not where I want to live. That's my opinion. I also find mediocrity in unbridled suburban sprawl, but I also find mediocrity in over prescriptive regulation. And in here, you know, for instance, you have to plant a tree every 25 feet. Well, I love trees. I don't know that I want to tell somebody that to plant every 25 feet. And then it also goes on to say, well, you have to plant a canopy tree or a shade tree. And I thought, well, if I was a business owner, I might like to xeriscape, particularly given our water conditions. I can't see this supporting small business, which is what I'm interested in, small local business. I think it would be very difficult for a small business owner to wade through this level of regulation. Now, I did pick a couple things out of it that I thought, well, you know, people might, and I'm not saying I particularly advocate for these, but the block structure is based on historic Blanco design. That would keep things small just in itself, I would think. Maybe we talk about that. That could be one line. Number two, maybe we don't want pole signs in 281 quarter. That could be the second line. Number three, maybe we want gas stations to fuel on the rear and the side, and we want parking lots on the rear and the side. That could be line number 4. And maybe we decide we don't want any more drive-throughs on 281. And that could be line number 4. Maybe we just do 4 lines instead of, I don't know how many pages this is. That's how I feel about it currently.
One thing that I noticed in the document, and I haven't been able, because of my schedule, I haven't been able to attend any of the meetings, and this is really the first detailed report that I have seen on the overlay. And I guess the amount of detail and regulation kind of turned me off. I'm thinking, here's these people coming from afar with briefcases, and they're going to tell us how they want Blanco to be. We have a unified development document here that was developed over a long period of time. I don't know how many times. There's a process that it can go through to do this. But as I look at this document, it sounds like the overlay will supersede our UDC. And it says in there very plainly, if there's a conflict in the UDC and what we're proposing here, then the overlay will take precedence over what is in our UDC. That bothers me. There's been a lot of public input in that unified development plan. Another thing that concerned me, it looks like the Planning and Zoning Commission will be the Board of Adjustment. It will be the one that decides about implementation and plans. How are the members of P&Z selected? How did they become members of P&Z? How did you become a member of P&Z?
I turned in my resume and was appointed by P&Z, and then it was approved by council.
Okay.
Council has the final approval of the appointments for both P&Z.
The way this reads, P&Z would be the final say, and I don't think that is appropriate. I think the people elected us to be in that position. That was just one concern that I had. I think too, I'm a little concerned. I have it on good authority that TxDOT is beginning to look very seriously at some kind of a bypass. And I'm wondering how that would affect our main street here. If a bypass were to go in, would that affect the way we want to do our planning here on the on Main Street. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Maybe we ought to wait a little bit to see what's going to happen there before we make too many changes to our community. We don't know if, when, and where, but it sounds like that thing at 281, it's past Borgfeld now, all the big changes, and it's coming our way. And I think TxDOT knows they've got to do something. We are a roadblock in the middle of this being a major artery. And so, unlike that, we know I think when that bypass comes, there's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to go along that bypass. And it might affect what happens here in town. I hate to move too quickly on this.
Oh, and there are talks about a relief route. I don't like the B word, so I'm gonna say relief route. But construction for the original in the plans, expansion of Highway 281 they're not gonna start digging, until 2027. So I think it's smart of us to be thinking about the future at the same time, so we can kind of do it along with both projects, is my opinion. Because yes, it is 3 years from now, but 4 years from now, but I think it's very important that we start planning now with everything instead of waiting until they're done and then we're like, oh, well, we probably should have started this earlier. So I think that's the reason behind us trying to start thinking about planning now.
I know that I think we need to be very careful to make sure that our public has input into this and that they hear what this plan is and understand it better than I understand it at this point. There's a lot of concerns out there, and I'm sure there's a lot of misunderstanding. But like right now, we're meeting, we call a meeting at 4:30 in the afternoon, and there's a lot of people that are out there working and can't get here that should be hearing this conversation. And if there is a presentation, I hope there'll be a presentation on this that will provide us more information and a little more comfort. And the public needs to be invited to listen in on that. They need to know what's going on. Right now, I don't think very many people really know what this is all about. So we need a lot more public input.
Is there any more discussion?
Just to add, I took the survey and I didn't care for it. I just didn't like the tone. It was cheeky to me. And oftentimes I found the answer I wanted to give was not offered in the multiple choice answers that were provided. So I thought it was an interesting exercise, but I don't want to hang too much on that piece of the public comments on this process. And then as far as the steering committee goes, I think one of our members, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think she was ever actually at the steering committee meetings. And at least one of the business owners that was represented on 281 has expressed to me that she didn't feel heard. So I don't know if we're done with the community outreach.
We're going to move on to executive session. Item 1, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071 to Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules and Professional Conduct for the City Attorney regarding legal act issues associated with the water treatment plant projects, bids, contract award, and notice to proceed. Item 2, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071 and Section 105, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct for the City Attorney regarding implementation of City of Blanco Ordinance 2023-0001, providing for the holding of a general election on May 6, 2023. So at 5:26, we are